Hello and welcome back. Today I'm here with Murtaza. So you're a green coffee bean importer into Australia and you specialize in Yemen coffee.
That's correct.
Awesome. So today we're going to talk with you and deep dive into hopefully some more information about Yemen coffee.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure.
Tell us a little bit about your background. How did you get into the coffee industry?
Cool. So interesting story is that I didn't actually drink coffee until I started drinking coffee.
When was that?
About, I would say around 2019. So not too long ago.
Yeah.
And before that I was a standard small cappuccino of 3 sugars.
As we all were.
As we were. But it was more, I think, my father's interest in coffee. He has always been interested, but he bought a small mocha pot, like a stovetop, and he was experimenting with different coffees. And at that time, his understanding was that it has to be like a very bitter coffee, and that is what's, a good coffee. Could also be his preference, but that was sort of what was going on in the house at that time.
Yeah.
And that is also how our initial how we started drinking Yemeni coffee, because we're originally from Pakistan, so we're not Yemeni by origin.
Sure.
And
so when you're in what you're referencing now is when you were living in Pakistan.
No, this is when we were in Australia, in Bairnsdale.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you get? So
Yemeni
you were
coffee.
drinking Yemen coffee in Bairnsdale.
Yes. So how that happened?
Yeah. How did that happen?
So. Our connection, we have a very strong connection to Yemen. Not so much the country, but the community there.
Okay.
I'll have to go a bit more into the community background first, so that explains, and that'll explain a lot of other things as well. So the way it works is we're a small community. You could call us a religious community, an ethno-cultural community. We're called the Dawoodi Bohras. We fall under the Shiite part of the major Muslim community.
Cool.
And we're part of part of that denomination.
Sure.
Approximately about 1 million community members living globally, all over the world.
Yep.
And Yemen is one of the oldest places where, Yemen has one of the oldest communities within the world. So India and
Yemen's quite prominent in this religious community.
Yes, correct.
Cool.
India also. But Yemen and Egypt are the main areas of places.
Interesting.
And so because of that, we already knew that Yemeni people grow coffee.
Right.
As compared to a lot of the people who drink coffee but don't even know that Yemen is a coffee producer. So we already understood and knew that, and we already knew people growing coffee in Yemen. The other thing is, I went to an international school, which is again run by our community for the community.
An international school.
Yeah, so it's sort of like a boarding school. You can to oversimplify it. It is half religious school, half then you do just your general studies as well. So you do year 9, year 10, year 11, year 12, alongside religious studies. There's 4 branches, so it's sort of like boarding school. You've got a hostel, you live there, all those things. There are 2 branches in India. There's a branch in Karachi, Pakistan, where I studied, and then there's a branch in Nairobi, Kenya. Right. Again, the reason I'm talking about all of this is links back to how I know people in Yemen. So as I said, big massive community already living in Yemen. So a lot of the young children, young people from that community also come to this school.
Sure.
Similar to me, who
Gotcha.
as someone living in Karachi wanted to go to this school, I went there. So you've got people from all over the world coming, right?
Right. And is that how you sort of initially
Exactly.
established that?
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. So you went to school with these people?
I went to school with them.
So are they now growing coffee, or are they now...
Some of them are.
Right.
And I'll get a bit more into, especially the lot that you've got.
Sorry?
The lot that you've got at the moment.
I know.
Sorry.
I wasn't sure if you were trying to say something off camera or...
No.
Okay.
So I'll especially get into that one because that again ties into how I know people.
Okay.
In Yemen.
Tell us about that coffee first, or later?
A bit
Right.
later. I'll
Okay.
finish explaining this.
Yeah.
Right. So went to school with. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
Went to school with these people.
Yep.
And again, it's a hostel, so you're not just studying with them; you're living with them.
Sure.
I had roommates who are now back in Yemen. You know, either working on farms, doing community service, things like that.
Okay.
So that's how strong our connection to Yemen is.
Yeah.
It's not just that one day we woke up and we were like, oh, we'll import coffee from Yemen.
Sure.
So that's sort of the background.
Fantastic.
And so that's kind of how we started getting into coffee. Now, how we got coffee from Yemen into Australia and how we were drinking it, there is a business.
So this is the first coffee that you've ever tried from
that I've
Yemen?
ever tried from Yemen, yes.
Okay.
I mean, that I've ever tried in an alternative brewing method, let's say.
What do you define as that?
As in, from Yemen, yes. Sorry, yes.
Okay.
Yes, first Yemeni coffee ever that I've tried was in a mocha pot at home that my father had ordered. Other than that, all the coffees that I had were with milk. I didn't even understand alternative brewing methods. None of that, right? So my entry into coffee is this is how it happened.
Fantastic.
Now, going to how we got that coffee and what that coffee is. So honestly, I don't remember exactly what the coffee, because there's a business again run by one of the community members. They've been running this business for about, I think, 20 years now in Yemen. They are producers, they're exporters. They also work with local co-ops. It's a very big business.
Sure.
And they do sort of retail as well. But obviously the prices and stuff are so high that people just, like, if you order one bag, international shipping, it's
Sure.
But my father was very interested, so he got 1 or 2 bags in.
Yep.
And this is when we.
Do you know roughly how much? I'm just curious.
I
30,
don't. But
60.
if I were to guess, close to $100.
Yeah, right.
Australian, I think.
Yep.
This is roasted.
Yeah.
I think he got 1 bag which was beans and 1 bag which was ground. And so the way that these guys work is a lot of their Yemeni coffee goes to the US. This is what I understand. I could be wrong, but again, this is going back so many years, and we didn't understand coffee that well at that time. And it comes from the US. So roasted in the US comes from the US.
Okay.
But still, Yemeni coffee. So we were playing around, and another sort of community event that happens annually is a 10-day morning event that takes place in different cities in the world. And in 2019 it happened in Sri Lanka. So we had gone to Colombo, and Yemeni community members there had put up a stall, and they were serving pour over Yemeni coffee. They weren't selling it. It was just free. You just go, you taste it, have it. That was it.
Sure.
So we had already, like, our interest in coffee had started. And my father saw them. He went up to them. He tried the coffee, and he was blown away. He was like, "What is this?" Because anyone who has had their first good pour over has I
Yeah.
think always had that same reaction. Is this is not coffee?
Yeah.
You know, this is
something
juice.
else.
This is something else. This looks brown. It's not coffee.
Yeah.
He had the same reaction. And he started talking to the community members that were serving the coffee, who happened to be the farmers.
Yeah,
The producers.
right. Interesting.
And so that's kind of how you know, his mind started going, okay, this is sounds like a good idea. That specific community member is a long word, but friend, let's say, or producer, gave my father a couple green samples.
Yep.
He was like, Australia is an untapped market. We haven't worked there. Let's try and do something.
Sure.
This is a time when we did not understand brewing or coffee, let alone green stuff.
When was this? What year?
2019 still.
2019.
So the community, so the annual event was right about September, October 2019. So we came back and we started talking, my father and I. And we started basic Google searching, you know, Yemen coffee in Australia.
Yeah.
There was
Market research.
Yeah, market research.
Yeah.
Very, very basic market research. Rarely any Yemeni coffee available.
Interesting.
There was some, and if I can, I'd like to name. I think there's a roaster in Sydney somewhere called Bun Coffee. Bun is actually the Arabic name for coffee.
How do you spell it?
BUN.
Okay.
In English. It's phonetically pronounced the same way. Bun, which is the Arabic name for coffee. Qahwa is also, so qahwa is the drink. Bun is coffee itself.
I'm not going to try and pronounce that.
It's So a couple people, you know, selling Yemen coffee here and there.
And was this like your specialty grade Yemen coffee, or is this more of like a, hey, this is coffee from the region, but it's nothing too special?
Is this the coffee that we came about in Australia that other people were selling?
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know, and the reason I don't know is because we didn't understand specialty grade and stuff like that at that time. So for us, it was just because it was so interesting, the fact that because we understood the history.
Yeah.
Right? So for us, it was just mind blowing that there's this massive historical place that has been growing coffee for centuries, that has been one of the places where coffee started from. And I always like to say, okay, yes, Ethiopia is where it's native originated, but Yemen has its place, right? Yeah. And then we look at Australia and we could not find anything.
Sure. And it's not too long ago if you think about it.
No.
2019, there's so much that has happened in the coffee industry, and then 2019 to see what you're saying is really there is an untapped market.
Yeah.
So it's pretty crazy to hear that.
Right. And so we started searching, and then we're like, okay, well, we're going to do something in this area. Now, in November or I think December 2019, I left Australia and went back to Pakistan for about 9-10 months. This was round about the time when we were talking about starting a business. I went there to finish my memorization of the Quran, which is a holy book. It was just something that I had done and I wanted to finish. And I just thought I'll go and do it.
Sure.
The reason I mentioned this is because that's kind of why we had this gap of 9-10 months between having the initial idea and then actually implementing it.
Sure.
Then COVID happened.
Heard that before.
And then COVID happened.
Yeah.
But then I came back in September 2020, and a lot of things had changed. But my father had gotten some roasted beans. Again, this is a time we didn't understand much. We were just trying to do something with Yemeni coffee.
Sure.
He got some roasted coffee bags from the same guy that we were trying the Yemeni coffee off.
Yep.
And
the Poriva guys.
No.
Different
This
people.
is the people that we were making mocha pot coffee with.
Okay, gotcha.
Even further back, right?
Sure.
And he just thought, I want to start. How do I start? Okay, I'll get roasted coffee so that I can sell it to the market. And
it makes sense when you think about it, but until you know
exactly
how coffee works and
yeah.
when your peak freshness is, it's definitely the wrong way of going about it.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But for him, it was a start.
Yeah.
And the way that he started selling that was, initially...
So he imported roasted coffee beans?
Wow. Yes.
On scale?
No, I think it was 250 gram bags, and I think it was around 125 bags or something like that.
Okay. So still a considerable amount of coffee to be left with, especially to start off with.
Yeah.
Did he move it all?
The way we moved it is we started doing local markets. And so that's how we started selling Yemeni coffee. I made the website after that. All of those things came after, but that's basically how we started selling.
Right.
And first market we did was Painesville Market. He did it by himself. We hadn't come to Australia yet. Or when I say we, I mean myself and my brothers. And then I came back, and then we started doing other markets and things like that.
Interesting.
So that's that's the way that we got into.
From concept to this is how we're starting our business.
Yes.
And now from that point, you've then gone and I'm just going to skip ahead a little bit.
That's fine.
You've then gone ahead and now you are servicing roasters with green coffee beans.
That's correct.
Awesome.
Yes.
Now that we're here,
yes,
I'm going to ask you some questions. We've just bought some coffee off you.
Yes.
Basic Barista.
Yes.
Tell us about this coffee.
Sounds good. Sure. So the coffee that you've bought is I'll talk about the village after.
Sure.
First, what I'll talk about is the sort of the co-op where it comes from. So the co-op is called Al-Mashtal Al-Burhani.
Okay.
This is
you're gonna have to tell me how to spell that. When I put it on the website, hopefully it's already
everything's
done.
there. Yeah, I've got a whole PDF waiting for you. That's
cool,
fine.
Cool.
So this Al-Mashtal Al-Burhani is Al-Mashtal means nursery.
Wow. Okay.
It's literally means nursery. And
in Arabic?
In Arabic, correct. So this is a sort of a co-op that is being run as a non-profit by the community.
Right. Okay.
And basically, so the way it works is there are people or members, community members working within this, let's say, organization, who are being supported, let's say, financially by the community, and they are going around and okay, I'll slightly go back into history really quickly.
Yeah.
There was this movement started by our spiritual leader, where he encouraged farmers in Yemen to stop growing qat. Qat is
to what, sorry? To
qat. Stop growing qat.
Start or stop?
Stop.
Stop. Yeah.
And qat is a drug, basically.
Right.
It is similar to tobacco in terms of how it is consumed. The leaves are chewed, and you know but it basically numbs you.
Sure.
And Yemeni farmers had stopped growing coffee and started growing qat as sort of a cash crop. Qat doesn't require a lot of labor.
Sure.
And
less processing. You just
less
grab
water.
the leaves and chew it compared to coffee processing.
Yeah. Where the yields are low, there's so much more involved. You have to tend to them the whole year. All those things, right? Yeah. So again, going briefly into history, Yemeni farmers have been growing coffee for centuries. They sort of stopped growing coffee, started growing qat, almost all over Yemen.
Wow.
And
do you know what time frame you're Speaking of roughly?
Roughly, I think, and again, I'm not an historian,
Sure.
and also not Yemeni myself, so my timeframes might be a bit skewed, but I think roughly maybe 100 years ago.
Oh, okay.
So it's fairly recent, right?
Sure.
And so our spiritual leader encouraged farmers who are growing qat to uproot qat trees and start growing coffee, sort of go back to their roots. And there was this massive community effort for about 4 to 5 years between, it's in the document, but I may be saying the wrong dates.
That's right, we'll have the correct dates.
Between around about 2008 to say 2012-ish. What was happening was community members from all over the globe were going to Yemen, traveling to Yemen at their own expense, and helping these coffee farmers who needed a lot of labor help to uproot these qat trees.
Wow, okay.
And grow coffee again.
Right, so it's a massive effort of people who literally come in and just change crop. We're no longer doing this, we're now doing this. Right.
All done with consent, obviously. It wasn't just, let's and even before they started uprooting qat trees, people were going to these farmers and talking to them and explaining to them how qat was ruining, because the other thing qat does is it ruins the soil. In a year or two, it just completely ruins the soil.
Oh, okay. So it's like one of those things where it's a quick fix, but not a long-term
it's a
solution.
cash crop.
Sure.
And there is no global market for it. They're basically selling it to Ethiopia, within Yemen, that sort of thing.
Sure. Okay.
So that happened, and now you have all these farmers growing coffee, but they're smallholder farmers. They don't have massive hectares, right? Where do they sell it? So that's why I prefaced it. That's where this organization comes in.
Interesting.
Where its task is to go to all these farmers who are now growing coffee to help them with their crop quality, to help them with water scarcity. Yemen is mountainous. A lot of the areas are dry and arid. So this organization helps just provide water for free when needed. They also have
specifically for coffee production.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It helps it helps farmers and stuff like.
But that's the main.
That's the main. Yeah. It was set up for this reason. It helps with, so it's got a growing area in itself where the organization will grow coffee seedlings and provide the farmers who want to start growing coffee with saplings, so that they don't have to wait so long for the beans to sprout, and it's guaranteed that once a plant, you understand this, once a plant is growing, it's much easier to tend to it rather than start from bean. So all of these things. And it's a non-for-profit. So once the farmers bring the coffee that they have grown, this organization processes it and takes it to the global market, tries and sells it. Whatever profit is made goes back to the farm.
Yeah, awesome.
So that's
what's this organization called?
Al-Mashtal al-Burhani. So that's the organization's name.
Gotcha.
It's now the business front is called Aqiq Haraz Bun, which has bun, the name of the coffee in it. But the organization at the back end is called Al-Mashtal al-Burhani, which is a nursery, right? Awesome. Yep. And within that, they also have Al-Madrasa al-Bun. Madrasa means school. So they also have like a school of coffee within that organization.
It's like an education department.
Exactly.
Yeah,
where they bring in farmers, they educate them on all these better farming practices.
Wow.
Because obviously qat and coffee, completely different crops.
Yeah.
And the farmers have generational knowledge of how to grow coffee, but obviously you have to keep up. Exactly.
There's new ways,
all those things.
Yeah.
So that's where the coffee that you've bought comes from.
Fantastic.
Within that, just quickly, within that, it comes from a village called Jarma.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's a microlot, because it's coming from one specific village.
Yep.
Most of the coffees in Yemen are processed naturally.
Yep.
You will very rarely see washed coffees because of water scarcity.
Sure.
And now there is some experimentation with fermentation and stuff, but mainly it's natural processed.
Awesome. So with that, I'd imagine you've tasted lots of Yemen coffee.
Yes.
Out of the processing methods, natural, as you said, it's definitely the most popular due to the environment.
Yes.
I know for a fact we did a Yemen coffee tasting.
Yes.
So we went through and we just tasted easily like 20-ish.
I think it was
40.
30 or something.
Yeah, 20 to 40 like coffee samples all from Yemen.
Yes.
And they had different processing methods. What's your most standout coffee that you've tried from Yemen and why?
All right. Difficult question, but I would say, other than this one, there is actually a coffee that I still have in stock, about 150 kilos of it, which that's one of the first coffees that we actually imported as green.
Right.
Now I've tried all these funky, processing methods, all of those things, very high quality stuff. I'm not saying that's not good, but this was something obviously that was sort of close to my heart because we'd invested money in it, and I'll be honest upfront. I had the supplier that I got it from. He'd sent me an offering list. I went through that and I just chose 3 coffees that were in my budget that looked good. Right? That is how I imported these. Yep. So I had not cupped them.
These were the first coffees that you brought into Australia?
As green, yes.
Yep. Okay.
And I had not cupped them. So they came in and I have a friend who lives in Yarragon. His name's Martin. He's a roaster, a very experienced roaster. I met him at Traralgon Market actually, and he roasted these for me as like a small sample roast, and I cupped them myself at home. This is the Haraz that I'm talking about. I had three coffees from Haraz, from Bani Hamad, and from Bani Matan.
Right.
The Haraz, when I cupped it, immediately it tasted like peach iced tea. And for me, that first sip was
thank goodness.
Yeah.
You've just bought all this coffee, you've finally got it in, all the stock landed.
Yeah.
So you're literally importing blind in a way.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
That was a big risk, would not recommend.
No.
Not the right way to do business.
Definitely an experience curve.
Absolutely. I also got it via air freight.
Oh my
goodness. you can imagine why I still have 150 kilos lying around.
The price,
yes.
Any cost occurred, you just have to add on to the end.
And that's why it's just it's been a very steep learning curve, but that's the reason.
Removing all of that, I want you just to think not about the price, not about the business. I want you to take that hat off.
Yes.
The most mind-altering coffee that you've tasted from Yemen. And
okay, sure. I think it was from the
tasting we did.
It was from the company Qimma that provided the samples for that tasting.
Yep.
Frankly, at that cupping event, it was I think between 20-40 coffees. I was overstimulated. I was overwhelmed.
It was a lot.
And I have not gone to a cupping of that scale.
Sure.
So honestly, it's very hard to remember which coffee over there stood out. But these guys did sort of a sample set sort of thing a couple years before this auction, and there was a coffee in that sample set. I think it was either Bani Ufair or Bait Al-Al, I don't remember. But it was such a well-layered coffee that I still remember. It was passion fruit and then mango and then rose. In that order every time.
Yeah, right.
In a pour over setting, in a cupping bowl, all of those things. It was an alchemy process. It was fermented and stuff.
So alchemy process is, I guess, their version of saying carbonic macerated?
Honestly, I don't know.
Okay.
It's something I think which is unique to how they do things.
Sure. Are they transparent about it, or you just don't know?
I think they have a whole description of how they do it.
Okay.
But they call it alchemy.
Sure.
That's what I remember.
I'll have a look in, and if we've got any information, we'll
put
it
absolutely.
up, or we'll link it in the description. But yeah, so it's this alchemy process, natural Yemen coffee, and you had it about 2 years ago.
Roughly, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's that one. But in terms of the coffee that I have brought in, that Haraz, and
that's still the
that was the first coffee that blew me away.
Yeah.
But the anaerobic one that I've gotten at the moment, the one that I've told you about, I've got 20 kilos of it.
What's the name?
It's a nanolot from a village called Al Kahil.
Yep.
And it's from two brothers who grew the coffee. It was sourced by a friend of mine in Yemen. They are also growing coffee at the moment at 2,600 meters above sea level.
Whoa. So Yemen's known for having really high altitude coffee.
Correct.
So just to sort of intersect here, for people who don't know what Yemen coffee tastes like, what would be a key sort of explanation that you could say you taste a coffee, you might have 50 different coffees there. If you were to taste one and you knew it was Yemen, what would that coffee taste like?
I would say it's a massive fruit bomb.
Okay.
I think that's the most simplest way to describe it.
Yep.
There is almost always a lot of stone fruit.
Okay.
And actually, this coffee has been interesting. The one that you've bought has been interesting because a lot of the feedback that I've gotten says that it's got a lot of spice notes to it, which is very interesting because I haven't had that in the other coffees that I brought in.
Sure.
But lots and lots of fruit and lots and lots of florals, jasmines, peach, apricots. Yemen, it's sweet most of the time. That's what I would say. Yeah.
Okay. Would you say there's lots of those earthy undertones as well?
On the chocolate and caramel side as well. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think earthiness as much. On the chocolate side, yes. I think if we have some time, I'd like to talk about the word mocha actually, because it's and I learned about this through a couple some blogs, some articles, but also an American Yemeni guy named Murtaza, who also has a Yemen coffee business, and there's actually a book written about him as well. And
so mocha actually is a varietal of coffee? Is that what we're referencing?
According to my knowledge, no.
Okay.
Some people, I think, use it as a varietal.
Right.
So mocha is actually an anglicized version of al-mukha.
Right.
You can sort of see the similarity in the word there. Al-Mukha is a port city in Yemen.
Ah, okay.
Where it is said that global coffee trade started from.
Right.
And it is near an area called Ta'iz, sort of southwest of Yemen. And reason why I wanted to talk about this is because the way the story goes is once global coffee trade started, people started drinking Yemeni coffee, Ethiopian coffee, all of those things. There was this distinct chocolate flavor, I think, in the coffees in general. This is obviously going so way back,
sure.
300, 400 years ago. their roasting methods obviously were different, all those things. So I guess chocolate stood out a lot, right?
There was some distinction with, hey, this coffee for some reason tastes a
like
little
this.
bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so when Yemeni coffee started to drop off the global coffee map, what I understand is a lot of other places started putting chocolate in their beverage to remind themselves of the Yemeni coffee that they used to have.
Right. Hence mocha. Interesting.
Because when you think about it, the word mocha doesn't have anything to do with chocolate.
Sure.
And the beverage that we drink today, the mocha that you get at cafes, is a shot with chocolate.
Yep.
Right? Which is, it's understood that this is how the beverage came
Interesting. Okay. So it's all down to a very old port in Yemen.
Yeah.
Right.
Where trade started, coffee trade started from.
I swear mocha is also a varietal though, isn't it? As in spelt differently.
So
M-O-C-H-A.
Honestly, I'm unsure, and I can talk briefly about varietals in Yemen because even the coffee that you've bought, the varietal is called Jadi, Jaadi, right? And
never heard that before.
No. Most of the Yemeni coffee varietals, you wouldn't have heard them before.
Right.
And this is something that I'm learning at the moment as well, so please don't come at me.
Yeah, of course.
But what I understand is either there's a discrepancy or there's a complete difference between the varietals grown across other coffee growing regions and Yemeni coffee. Or there is a similarity but just hasn't been found yet. Right. But Yemen names their coffee trees locally.
Right.
So, excuse me, you'll see Jadi as one varietal, you'll see Udaini, you'll see Ismaili.
These are all towns or provinces or...
These are more different coffee trees.
Right. Okay. So these are varietals.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Exactly. So Yemeni people have been distinguishing these different coffee plants by these names. Now, I am unsure if they are what they're named after.
Right. Okay.
But let's say there's Jadi. There's all these different ones, and at least up till now. I haven't seen a sort of a correlation between, let's say, if it's a Typica or if it's a Bourbon.
Sure, okay. So we're just going off, I guess, the traditional names.
Exactly.
Instead of... So even if it's called a traditional name, like, what was
Jadi.
it? Jadi.
Yes.
That might very well be Bourbon.
It could be.
Yeah.
But it also could be something completely different.
And we just don't know.
And we just don't know. Yet.
Right. Interesting. There's so much that we just don't know about so much.
Yeah.
It keeps blowing my mind whenever things pop up and then you talk to some really experienced people in the industry and they're just like, well, we actually don't know.
Yeah.
Yet.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's how like the varietals are named. I'm unsure if, let's say, how we would approach this, call it an issue, call it a discrepancy, because again, Yemeni farmers have been doing this for centuries, right?
Sure.
So going in and telling them, oh, this Jadi that you're growing is actually this, is kind of, to me, it's in a way, I guess, unfair, because I guess Jadi came a lot before, for example, just to use the term Typica.
Sure. Right?
So it's more historical. They've been growing it. They've been using the term for so much longer. That to me, I'd rather use the term that they're giving me.
100%.
Which is why when most people ask me what varietal it is, I tell them
it's a whole story.
It is a whole story, exactly. It opens a whole story.
How much time do you have?
Yeah, exactly.
And like as things get simpler on coffee bags, people want I feel like that's a really tough one actually, because when you're coming from the grower's perspective, there's never a simple answer ever.
Yes.
But then when you're going from the, I guess the other side, the end consumer, people here in Australia, let's just say, someone who's new to filter coffee, and then there's just so many words and processes and different varietals and what's a massel. So learning about all these different things, it gets quite complex.
Yes.
So I feel like there's no correct answer. I feel like there's different solutions, and then whoever makes, I guess, whoever's a part of that chain, right? Whether you're the importer, the roaster, or the end consumer, or even the farmer, they're all making these decisions based off what they think is right.
Correct.
So it's like there is no correct way of doing it.
Yeah.
There's just all these different sort of things. And I think a really good example of this would be geisha.
Yeah.
Geisha, or spelt geisha.
Yeah.
There's two different ways of spelling geisha.
Right.
There's
With the I and without the I.
And
right?
I use either just like that, but there's no sort of correct way of spelling it.
Yeah.
There's just lots of different ways, and then you'll have different people trying to say, oh well, actually this is the correct way of doing it because there's other historical relevance for this word.
Yeah.
So then, without being political or anything, it's just you just want to try and simplify things.
Yeah.
But there is no simplicity.
But there is no simplicity. Yeah. And I think your point about there not being a correct answer is, I guess that's how approaching coffee in general and the coffee industry, I think that's a good way to approach coffee. Because in a way that leaves room for, let's say, the producers. That leaves room for the roasters. That leaves room for the brewers, right? Otherwise, if there starts becoming dogma about, no, this is the correct way,
sure,
right? Only washed, only natural.
Yeah.
Once you start doing that, then you just start restricting and then
less innovation.
Yeah, I think so. And I guess it's the same with fermentation and stuff. It's an in thing at the moment. Almost everyone's doing it. I mostly enjoy fermented coffees, but with that said, I think same thing, like there's no correct answer. You can ferment it for 2 days, you can ferment it for 10 days, you don't ferment it. It's coffee, it's a beautiful thing. I would say let everyone do what they're doing.
Yeah.
You know?
100%.
Yeah.
Next question. I want to give you an opportunity to sort of tell our audience, imagine these are people who are either not in the coffee industry or they are in the coffee industry. We've got quite a range of audience.
Yes.
Some people not in Australia, some people in Australia.
Yes.
If there's one thing that you want people to know about Yemen coffee, what is that?
One thing is history,
Yeah.
right? Yemen has so much history with coffee, and I don't say this with ignorance about the fact that there is no history with other coffee producing regions. There always is. But what one thing is that, right? Yemen is very significant for coffee, let's say, if that makes grammatical sense.
Sure.
The other thing, I guess, because you've given me the opportunity, I would want to point out is price. The reason I bring this up is because Yemeni coffee has been and is at the moment very, very expensive compared to other coffees.
Yep.
And having been in the industry for, let's say, 3 years, I have heard this again and again and again that, oh, your coffee is great, but it's too expensive. Your coffee is great, but it's too expensive.
Sure.
And I understand.
Yep.
All right. I sympathize, all those things. Everyone's running the business.
I want to jump in. Give us your average price of Yemen coffee. So you've got a range of different offerings. What's your average price? Just so that our audience can sort of know what expensive is, what that actually is.
Sure thing. Average green price that I'm selling the green for.
Yeah.
$50 a kilo.
50
Australian dollars.
50 AUD.
Yes.
So in reference, most blenders here in Australia, they're what, $9, under $10? They're from 8 to 10ish.
I would think even lower, I guess.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so. Because
and then for other, sorry, just to give the but for then other sort of your G1s and your stuff that's a little bit below specialty but still in that range, in that bracket, or is just at 80 points, you're looking at anywhere from, I'm going to say 12 to about $30 mark. Actually, around that,
I think
for
it's
other,
much less.
Other countries? Okay.
Yeah, for other countries, what I've heard from feedback that I've gotten is that, let's say for example, just use an example. There's a coffee that I'm selling for, let's say $50 a kilo.
Sure.
Right. It's scoring, let's say, 86 points. Random. The feedback that I get is a similar 86 scoring coffee. Let's say I'm talking from a roaster, as a roaster. They'll say I can get an 86 scoring coffee for $20 a kilo.
Sure.
That's why I say that there's so blenders, I guess, is on a much lower side. Then you go to almost just below specialty, which maybe is around, say, 10 to around about that.
Sure.
And then I think generally this specialty coffee that you are able to buy from an importer would be between, say, 15 to 25 to 30, I think.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
And then you've got the microlots, the nanolots, the experimentals,
and all of those things.
20, 30 plus, right?
Yes.
So having $50 mark is considerably on that higher scale.
Yes.
And it's a lot. It definitely does demand that higher price.
Yes.
What's your response?
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. So my response, especially as someone, I always like to acknowledge this, is I'm not a farmer, right?
Sure.
I'm an importer. Everyone has their own place in the supply chain. My response, according to the situation that I've understood up till now, is there are a couple of reasons why the coffee is expensive. One is it's a supply-demand thing. Coffee farmers in Yemen have started to grow coffee on a larger scale very recently. At least the ones that I'm importing coffee from, right? I can't speak from others. They might have been, so these farmers, they don't own massive lands. Most of them don't. They have a small, and let's think from a producer's perspective. I have a small area of land that I'm growing coffee on. My yield is very low, right? But I have now committed to just grow coffee.
Sure.
What that means is whatever yield I'm getting is all I have to, let's say, support my family. And I need to get a certain amount of price for that yield to grow more coffee.
Invest back in.
Support the family. All of those things. And so I think that's part of it. The other thing is it's all manual labor, and I'm not saying there's not manual labor in other regions, but Yemen, according to my understanding, uses almost no machinery.
Right.
In the harvest part, at least. So it's everything hand-picked. Everything's done manually.
Sure.
So that's that involved as well. So all of these factors, obviously, they demand a higher price. Now, when you think about it, as is with anything else, you have to start buying something at a higher price to then for the price to eventually come down.
Sure.
Because you are participating you're participating in the loop, in the supply demand loop, where you are you are feeding the demand so that they can then supply, right?
Yeah.
So this is normally my response as to why the coffee is expensive. But this is why it's expensive at origin. Then you have logistics.
Yep.
And I'll talk briefly about that. At the moment, at least, and I'm trying to work around or with this, is at the moment coffee hasn't been able to be shipped directly from Yemen to Australia.
Right.
I'm trying to figure out why. I haven't gotten a cohesive answer yet. But what happens is coffee goes from Yemen either to Saudi Arabia, Oman, or Dubai, which is all Yemen shares borders with all three countries or areas, and it gets shipped from via land from Yemen to one of these places.
So it's double dipped.
Pretty much, yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then from there, and this is how I've been doing it, right? This is how I've had to do it, let's say.
Sure.
And from there, it gets shipped to Australia.
Right.
And then you have the option of getting it shipped via air or sea. Both are expensive. And so you add all those costs. And then once it lands here, you have all the clearing costs, all of those things. And obviously, as a business, you add whatever your margins are. And it ends up being expensive.
Yep. And by the time it's roasted, sold to the consumer, it's easily 10 times the price.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So that's at the moment what we're dealing with.
So with that, you've got an expensive product, you've got some logistic issues, and you've got, I guess, you're a small business. So taking on more coffee, which is more offerings for people, it is more risky. So taking on all that responsibility, it's a lot.
Yeah.
In 5-10 years, what are your goals for SB Coffee Trade? What are your goals? Where do you see yourself? And what sort of market can you see Yemen coffee being in general?
That's a great question. So what we've understood is that, what I've understood at least, is you can in a way segment the coffee industry in, let's say, the extremely high-end, very premium coffees, right? Maybe you can call them the geishas, whatnot. Those coffees. Then you have the sort of the mid-tier coffees.
So you're talking about the coffee varietals?
Just
coffee?
in general, like in terms of price and quality,
right?
I'd say. And this will make sense why I'm saying this. But you've got that tier of super premium coffees. Then you have like the tier after that, which is, let's say, from 85 to 87 points, 88 points, right?
Sure.
That mid-tier.
Yep.
I guess.
Yep.
Would that be? Yeah, because then...
Second top.
Second, exactly. And then you've got the tier after that, which is anything between 80 to 85. What I have now seen or experienced is the coffees where there is a lot more potential is in that third tier that I explained. Right. The first two, I'll still keep working in those, but what I want to do is tap into the third tier, which is 80 to 85 points.
So it's still specialty.
Still specialty.
Yep.
Good high quality, and the reason for that is I want to, in a way, support. And this sounds a bit because I'm a business. It's not just support, but want to work with farmers growing these. So because you are able to do volumes in this in this tier. It's not just linked to one farm. It's you're buying from multiple farmers. You're buying from co-ops. And I think that's how you can move volumes. That's how you can in a way buy from a larger amount of people. So that's one of my main goals.
Okay. So really just supplying and servicing that third tier that you've identified just after specialty.
Yeah, just just specialty, I guess.
Sure.
80 to 85 points. And again, the reason I've singled this out is because that way you get a slightly lower price at origin.
So your cost?
So our costs go down. My cost, correct.
Yep.
And that way the coffee that I'm bringing in might not be, traceable to the farmer, traceable to the region, yes, but also that way, in a way, it's more accessible.
Yeah.
It's more manageable.
Yep.
I guess more people can buy it as well. And so what I want to do is I want to, in a way, make Yemeni coffee or bring Yemeni coffee to the mainstream market.
Sure.
Rather than it just being this ultra high premium coffee that you can only buy 100 grams of.
And I guess that's sort of the secondary wave, isn't it? So you've got that first wave where people are paying absolute premium for like the stuff that we've got.
Yes.
They're paying the absolute premium. They want to try it. It's something new that they haven't had before.
Yeah.
But then I guess the secondary tier is accommodating for all that coffee that's still either there, a little bit cheaper, maybe not the highest quality, but still something that reflects Yemen coffee.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So these would still be single origins.
Yep.
They'd still be filter, you pour over the coffee.
Yeah.
Or would it be more of a blender?
No. I mean, I do know that there is a commercial market operating from Yemen as well.
Sure.
I have not understood that area so much. So
it's more of that filter,
more of the still single
origins,
origin,
but not your top tier.
Interesting. Yeah. I'll still have, because a lot of my contacts are still growing these type of top tier premium coffee still.
Sure.
So I'll still try and get those.
Yep.
But I'll try and focus more on this. In a way to build a better business model, but also because at the moment I feel this is the way to make Yemeni coffee mainstream market.
Make it more accessible,
reach
more people, and then that way you can scale up. So instead of being entirely sort of driven on your top tier quality coffee where you're bringing in all of that, you've got your other model which is more of that just below specialty. That third tier specialty where you're pushing that, and then that can sort of support you bringing in these really nice coffees as well.
Awesome. Pretty much.
I feel like it's a really good plan. Makes sense to me.
At the moment that's that, and then we're trying to work on selling Yemeni coffee as a beverage as well. Initial planning stages, we'll see how we go.
Fantastic. Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for talking about Yemen coffee. If you're interested, we do have that coffee. It will be available the time that you're seeing this, hopefully, unless we've sold out. But I'm sure
then
we'll
you'll buy more.
Yeah, that's it. We've got your socials. Do you want to just say what the best way to contact you is?
Sure thing. So we're on Instagram as SB Coffee Traders.
Yep.
The full term is Saifi Burhani Coffee Traders. You can contact us via that. You can DM us. I have the social on my phone, so it comes straight to me. It's not going to anyone else.
Direct,
yes. You can email us at info@sbcoffeetraders.com.au.
Yep.
Again, I will respond, so it's me.
Awesome. Love the personalized service.
Buy some Yemeni coffee.
Try it at least.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks again for coming on. See you guys next time.
Thank you.